Nick, I didn't get to say hi to you. Kind of directed you around and I didn't say hi. I'm Dr. Mary. First time people, so welcome here. A lot of these other people have been doing this for a long time now. And what you'll notice with some of my front row people up here, they come a lot to classes. So don't feel like you have to learn everything all tonight. And we don't want to overwhelm your brain too much. But try to just find a couple things that you'll write some notes about, that you'll take down, like exactly what you want to take home and learn to do different from this. You need a pen? Is that what you said?
Paper.
You need a paper?
Oh, I'll get it for you.
Can you pass that back? So the goal is to just find something different, something that you're going to do new today. And those of you guys who have been here a bunch of times before, this is that same kind of thing. It's like, what do you want to renew? Maybe you remember something that you maybe did better at a certain point in time. So I'm always noticing too that I got a little radio playing in the back of my head here too. That I want to share something different each time. And this one, we really wanted to take some time to focus a little bit on our thoughts in relationship to food. And those of you who, I know me personally, I do a lot of emotional eating, or I have emotions around eating. And then when you share with other people, it's really difficult being a health practitioner to encourage people to change food, because everybody is so emotional around food. So one of the things you want to first, kind of recognize or pay attention to is that it really starts between your ears, right? And so we're going to focus a little bit on that tonight. We do have 5 essentials, and I'm so practiced, I ask everybody to name them off, but now I'm showing you them, so I guess I won't do that. Your 5 essentials are core chiropractic, nutrition, which is one of the big focuses for tonight, but also mindset is really the relationship to how we think, not only about food and how we eat, but also our health. Oxygen and exercise is really learning about how important oxygen is as a nutrient. We don't even think of oxygen as a nutrient. Sometimes we think of exercise as some stupid thing people do because they think they care what their body looks like. And it's really not a stupid thing, only just based on that. There's a lot of science behind oxygen as a nutrient. And then minimizing toxicity. If you're not aware that there's something toxic in your life that you should be avoiding, this is also a really important topic, because today there's so many toxins in our environment, in our food, everything that we do, that if you don't know how to avoid some things, you are going to be impacted by your health. Your health is going to be impacted by the toxin you're exposed to. So, and our mission as a team in this office is to share with people and empower them with the information and tools to be able to utilize to change the way they view and manage their health. And I personally believe that everybody should have an opportunity to choose how they take care of their health. And I see over and over again in my practice, people literally, I don't want to call people victims, but people who have played a victim in healthcare, where they have become literally paralyzed by all the things that they've done up to this point, and what the doctors are telling them to do, and what society, their friends, right? Sometimes I encourage people right here, and you walk out this door over here and go home around your 20 other people that you hang around with the most, and they talk you right out of everything you just learned, right? We all do that. I got people in my life that do that kind of stuff. So it's really important to understand what you have the ability to do and where all that begins. So a couple of quotes that I wanted to start with is really paying attention to a couple of really great books. I think this one and the one I'm going to quote later on is out of Awaken the Giant Within. Anybody heard of Tony Robbins before? Yeah? Okay, we even know who he is. I listed a bunch of different quotes for him, and looked at a couple and just kind of thought about what one really rang most true for me. And he says, focusing on where you want to go and not what you fear. And we do that a lot, don't we, in life, that sometimes we forget what we're really trying to accomplish because of where we're fearing. So as I'm praying a little bit this morning, kind of talking about, it was kind of a funny situation, because I was trying to decide, do I go to the grocery store now? I got to make this salad, I got to do all this stuff, and I just finally went, no, I'm going to go out on my paddleboard. So So this morning, before I did anything for you guys, I went out on my paddleboard. And this is only my second journey on a paddleboard. I've never had a paddleboard before this. And I did it one other time, and while I was out there the one other time, I only made it 2 houses down and 2 houses back. And the whole time I was going, Mommy! Because the commitment to getting on a paddleboard is pretty big. So I'm pretty big. I wouldn't say I'm a super workout person, but I'm pretty athletic built. And I do a lot of stuff with balance. So a lot of times when I'm lifting weights and stuff like that, I'm standing on one foot whenever I can. I'll stand on a Bosu ball. This all started with Jan. We knew each other for the first time. I'll stand up on a Bosu ball on one foot while I'm lifting weights, right? And you just practice catching balance. So I knew in my mind I could do it. But when I fall off a Bosu ball, all I do is go like this.
Right.
And then I get back up again. If I fell off the longboard, I was going to be wet. Not only was it going to be wet, but I was also going to not probably make it back on the longboard. So wherever I went, it was going to be a long ways. So one of the things that I remember people telling me is to not look at your feet, to look, and as I'm rowing, and I tell you, I had to look so far focused in my horizon that if I saw a neighbor, I could not look or talk to any of them. I was just rowing along, and it was all I could do to just change the handle from one side to the other. Every little stupid step, focusing the whole way. And I made it. Actually, about a quarter of a mile down and a quarter of a mile back. And when I got to the quarter mile, my legs were like, and I was like, okay, I think I better turn around. So what's interesting about this quote is I could have stared down at my feet and spent the whole time going, oh my gosh, I hope I don't fall, I hope I don't fall, I hope I don't fall, instead of looking at where did I want to go, what did I want to do, how was I gonna, right? And it was really a big exercise in breathing and focusing. Yes. And this is true about what we want out of life. This is true about what we want out of our health.
We let everything else just go.
And in our health, we might know, how many people here know how to eat healthy? Everybody knows what you should do, right? You know you shouldn't eat that ding dong or ho ho or whatever the heck you're eating. You know that, right? That's not a trick. But what do we do instead? Sometimes we're afraid of something. We don't even know what we're afraid of. So I want actually everybody to take a few minutes right now as we share that. First of all, where you want to go, top line on your paper. Where you want to go with your health, where you want to go, like a challenged child. Ready? You got a cat. Oh!
That was a good throw.
It was a terrible throw. It went right over her head.
Oh, did it? So we're writing the question or the answer?
The answer to the question. What do you want? What you're going to put on there is, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to get my core stronger. I want to
All the above.
drop a size in my dress weight. I want to lift 200 pounds. I want to, whatever it is. What do you want to do? Run a mile, do a marathon, do a triathlon. Catherine?
No, I'm done. I'm done with those.
I know, but I'm just saying.
After 5, I'm
You're
done.
one of those people. Right? And so just that. And it doesn't have to be elaborate or a lot of things, just kind of one thing. And then underneath that line, if you have to give yourself space to go back and reflect, you can do that. Underneath that line, I want you to write what you fear about that. What if I tell, about that thing. What are you afraid of about that thing? Because something has made you not have that thing already right now.
Oh, yeah.
And what is that? You may not feel like you can really call it a fear. If it's more like a nuisance or an aggravation, it still falls in the category of fear, because somewhere underneath nuisance and aggravation is some underlying fear that you actually have. Right? And so when we're talking about the rest of these things that we're talking about, and as you're making some steps moving forward, because the other thing I want you to do is, even though everybody, said, I know what to do, it's just I don't know how to do, the thing you have to do leaving here is something different. And you have to do something that starts with an A. You have to take action. Right? Action's really important. Everybody point to their heart and go, action. I'm going to take action. I'm taking action, right? So you got to make sure that you commit that to yourself, that you're going to, out of this, come up with something. So then this slide kind of, hit me in one direction, because I was thinking, like, so looking at world obesity today, like, we're number 1 on the chart, right? Canada, if anybody cares, any Canadian born here, are 4, we're number 1. So when we're talking about this, I start to contemplate this, and then I decided to leave it on there because I want to share with you here something else that I think when I look at this. I kind of go, okay, well, who cares? Because what about me? Right, you have to think about you. Like what? So knowing that everybody else, sometimes when we know everybody else is overweight and obese, and by the way, overweight is 65% in our country. Obesity is 30, and it's a little higher than 30 in Michigan. We're in the Midwest is worse, right? So that's a really sad story for other people. But sometimes we look at this and go, well, everybody else is overweight, or I'm not that bad because everybody else is, right? Because I know, and I'm sure all you guys know, that the dress sizes have gone up. We just pulled out my mother's wedding dress that my mother has always spent an eternity of her time getting on a scale and being worried about what she weighed. And she never weighed any more than 160 pounds. And most of what I saw when we kind of helped her move recently, and I saw these, and she had stacks of written out her weight, right? And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm telling you all that because that's like obsessive compulsive stuff that not only did she do, but guess what she did to me? For me knowing that she was worried about that, she made me worried about that. So you know what I'm doing? I'm focusing on where I'm going and what I'm doing and what steps I have to take to get there, and I'm not thinking about that, right? And I'm not going to think about, like, it's too much to take on right now and worry about everybody, right? I mean, you can worry about your family, but we don't have to worry about 30% of the population. But we have to recognize the fact, for me, what it's saying is that if you just lose 5% of your current body weight right now, statistics says that you will increase your health and decrease your risk of disease, from heart disease, diabetes, cancer, those 3 most common things, by just losing 5% of the body weight you have right now, right? Because what do we do every year? We're not paying attention. What are we doing every year? We're gaining 5% every year, right? So then I go, 5% every year, that's not that hard. Right, that's a little attainable thing, right? So if you set your focus on, right, and then when you're making choices for different things, you set the focus on that. How about in our country that we spend the most money on prescription drugs? We have a list of all the things that are the most common. We're the highest in the world of psychotropic drugs, on dementia and respiratory, rheumatoid arthritis. Actually, if you look at the statistics of medications, we consume the majority, 74%, and I say we're only make up about 5% of the population of the globe, and we consume 74% of all the drugs that are made for the globe. And I don't want you to hear that as, and I think I see that you guys have that on your face, is how sad is that? Right? And then underneath that, it should make you a little mad. Right? Because, like, wait a minute, what are they doing to us? What are they doing to us? Really, literally. Slowly but surely killing us, and maybe a little bit of control.
Yeah. Because the doctor told me
keeping everybody in control.
A patient came into his office asking for the medication that they saw on TV.
All right, and the doctors don't know what to do any different either. The doctors, if they do something different, they're kicked out of PPOs, and patients aren't going there anymore because they couldn't get whatever they wanted. Yeah, they're definitely doing it. Prescription drug, the average drug label lists 70 side effects. Average drug label, 70 side effects. Right. How terrible is that? Right? And when you stop and think about that, that's more than the little stuffy nose you're taking the thing for in the first place, or whatever the problem is, right? Because what do we know to do different? We get to the cause of the condition, you don't need the pill. If you don't have the problem, you don't need the pill, right? And your body's not destined to have to be stuck on pills forever. How about genetics? Who's heard that because my mom has diabetes, I'm going to have diabetes. Because my dad has high blood pressure, I'm going to have it. Well, I'm here to tell you, none of my parents have diabetes. My dad had high blood pressure and had a heart attack when he was 70, and none of his offspring have heart disease. None of us are on any heart disease medication. 3 of us are chiropractors. What they've just studied and found is that genetics are actually another form of a lie that the drug companies have tried to make everybody convinced that you're just going to be this because everybody else is. What they know the science behind it is there's something called epigenetics. You guys heard that word before? Anybody back there ever heard that word before? Epigenetics means that there's something you can do to change or trigger the gene that's present. So you can have a gene that causes cancer. You can also have a gene that prevents cancer. And then it depends on which gene you activate. And actually, all those genes are present. The gene to have diabetes, the gene to not have diabetes. The gene to be overweight, the gene to not be overweight. All there, right? So when somebody just says you have that gene, you go, well, I also have this other gene. Depends on which one I'm going to activate. And you activate by lifestyle. 98% of all sickness and disease is activated through lifestyle. Not you just drew a bad stick. And oh, well, I got to take a pill, right? So then we have a vision of where do we want to go, right? And how do you think that person got there? Did she get there sitting on the couch?
No.
Or eating potato chips and bonbons? Right, so that's the kind of stuff that you have to keep a focus on so that when somebody does try to pull your focus off, right? Like for me, neighbor trying to say hi, you know, I don't maybe necessarily want to be unfriendly, but I'm staying right here. Hi, have a nice day. I'm going to eat my tabbouleh salad and my biscotti for breakfast, right? Or whatever you're doing, right? And then I'm going to the gym and I'm going to work out. I was thinking about this today. I also saw a thing where they were showing in Detroit the garden shows that are coming up. And like, you know, you go to these garden shows and you see these beautiful, pristine, amazing gardens. Anybody look at that and go, wow, look at those lucky people. They have a lucky garden.
No.
Anybody nodding at that, what it is not luck.
It's
It's hard work. And that's really, if I could teach you nothing else that you want to write on your paper, you have to work. This is not easy. Taking a pill is easy. Taking a pill is easy. Right? So if you want it to be easy, then that's what you do. If you want to not go down that path, it's work. Right? It's work. If you want that, if you want to be 80 and still running marathons, you got to work at that. It doesn't just happen. Right? So that's the most important thing under there. So we create habits. Dr. Carolyn Leaf writes a book about how your brain has actually the ability to grow and change. So we are taught in the science that we had, older science, that your brain never changes, that you have the same neurology that you're always going to have, and that's actually not true. Your brain actually grows and changes. So we want to recognize that there's patterns that literally create chemical reactions in your brain, that chemical reaction in your brain will outcome and result in either something positive or something negative, depending on what you put in it in the first place. So your body can actually learn pathways. So very simple, back up and think about me standing on this longboard, right, and rowing. My brain is learning brand new pathways while I'm doing that. My body's learning actually how to respond to when I'm putting the oar in the water, I'm not falling off the other side because my brain figured out to grab this muscle and react to it. So the same thing happens when we're getting habits of eating or making habits of exercising. If you talk to people who exercise on a regular basis, and you'll know that's part of their neurology. They don't just do it sometimes, they do it all the time, and it becomes part of, like, you can't get out of bed and feel okay about going through a day, and maybe you can make it through a day or two, but you know, by the second or third day, you're like jonesing to go work out, because that's what your brain does, right? So you have to reteach it. Is that easy? No. It is not easy. As a matter of fact, it takes a couple times to stumble, and a couple times to not feel like it, and a couple times like your brain tries to talk you out of it. But if you continue to focus on what you want at the end result, you can make new patterns, right? So that's actually something that your body knows how to do. So sometimes we have to feel the fear and do it anyway. Sometimes we have to have that what if I don't make it? Or sometimes we have to have the, what if I tell somebody I'm gonna do this and I don't, and they make fun of me? Or for me, I'm kind of an adventure personality. I like to learn new things all the time, so sometimes my family's always like, Mary's got some new idea she's doing again. Right? They're kind of like that. And then, so if I worry about what everybody else is going to think about me, it might stop me from being that adventurous person that God created me to be. So this is a really good book. If you want a good book to read to get over some fears, this is an awesome book. I highly recommend it. Some quotes that she has is, and I love this quote. Actually, I wanted to make this the second one because I like this one better than the next one. But taking responsibility means never blaming anyone else for anything that you are being, doing, having, or feeling.
Is that from her?
Take that in for a minute. It's in the book. When you think about that, you're like, oh, yeah, okay. How many of us do that?
Well,
I
then you're not being
do.
a victim if you do that.
You're not being a victim. But when I read it, how it hit me even more so is all those things. Anything you're being, doing, having, or feeling. Sometimes we might think, well, yeah, but they really said something mean, right? And we still want to blame. Or for me personally, this last year, that you guys have known and I'm done with my year, by the way, but the year before, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we had to move her, and so I have a bunch of drama and sad, and I was walking through grocery stores crying, and I was a basket case. And I was doing that. I was blaming that for my being able to be, well, I just deserve to sit down and eat some potato chips that are covered in chocolate because I'm sad, right? And so we have everybody, I'm sure, has got all kinds of things that we can do. But it's the reaction that we have that we choose, not what other people are doing. So when you take responsibility for your reaction of how you do, be, have, or feel, right? And you guys recognize do, be, have. Those are the things when people talk about having something, they think that if they have something, then they're going to become something, then they will do something. Everybody gets this backwards, right? If I only just had enough money, then I would have this, and then I could do this.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's got that list backwards. Guess what you have to do instead? You have to be what you want to become. Do the actions of the person that you want to become would do. And then you have. You have out of doing and being. Not, I'm going to sit here and wait for somebody to just give me. Right? So what does that take? Starts with an A. Action. Absolutely. The next one she says is, the only way to get rid of a fear of doing something is to go out and do it. And guess what? You're going to feel scared. You're going to be a little nervous. I was kind of like this, and people say to me all the time, you're so like natural and calm when you're talking to people. Guess what? I do this a lot. And I do it so much that it becomes really easy. Now, a couple times I've had to do it in front of like 1,000 people, and that's a little scarier. But even still, in those situations, I've done it enough times that I'm more comfortable. Where, did you guys know it's like the number one fear? Like people would rather die. Second fear is death before public speaking is number one.
Isn't that
Right.
crazy?
So people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy at a funeral. Right. You think about it. So it is. It's number one fear. But when you do it, then, what you have to be able to do, you guys, is not so much like, it's not that you're just doing it, but you have to be okay with messing up. Mm-hmm. Like I decided when I got on the board that I'd be okay with if I got wet. Oh well, I got wet. And I gotta tell you, I was a little more commitment because you know this, like when you're on the BOSU and you just kind of go, oh, I'm falling, I'm just getting off.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're not allowed to give up because
You're
you're going underwater,
Yeah.
there's no choice
But it's
there,
not
right?
like you're in a safe little pool either.
No, right. Yeah. You definitely have to be swimming away.
I'd have to start in
So
the pool.
feel the fear and do it anyway. So some of the things that you guys wrote down, if you wrote down some kind of fear thing, this is the thing you want to be like writing out. What are you going to do? What action are you going to take so you can have? what are you gonna do even though it makes maybe your stomach churn a little bit and it makes you a little bit nervous and jittery and right? Sometimes it's even like that when you're talking about taking steps in the direction of health. Like you have to change what you're doing at home, which means you gotta go tell your family you're doing something different. And then you gotta stay doing something different. And then, or sometimes I have to like have people like, the only way you're gonna get on this path is you start weaning yourself off of this thing you've been on for the last 20 years of your life, right? That you're afraid to, right? There's a lot of fear around that. So fear the fear and do it anyway. That doesn't mean go home and throw out your drugs without help. So no. There's a belief cycle. So what you believe. So remember I said it starts between yours. So what you believe. So if you believe I'm too old to lose weight, I'm too overweight to exercise, I'm too whatever it is, right? We make up our beliefs. If you have a negative belief about something, that's a limiting belief. That stops you from taking the action that you would need to take in order to go that direction. So it's actually a decision you make in your brain that actually starts to produce the outcome you're looking for. So you can either think positive or you can think negative. You can think I can do it or you can think you can't do it. Either way, you are going to be right. So it makes more sense to choose I can. So everybody go, I can. I can do it. Limiting beliefs turning into empowering beliefs is talking about success in healthcare is based on luck, kind of like the gardening thing I was telling you about. Sometimes we look at a beautiful model with all just everything carved in their muscles and they're all trimmed. They didn't get like that by accident. They worked hard at that, right? So you start looking at that kind of stuff and go, well, that was some work, right? And then I'm willing to, right, roll my sleeves up and do some work. And then skills for anything are learned and practiced, not just learned and heard about it sitting here one time, but learned and actually action taken, going out and doing a practice. I wrote a little note for myself on the bottom. This is where I wanted to talk to you guys about a fixed or a growth mind, because there's some science that Carolyn Leaf had and Renee, another doctor for neurology in the brain, talked about fixed or growth mind is that you can actually have a fixed mindset that then it will grow. And the fixed mindset is so they did this study with kids, and what they found out is that when you tell a kid, you're so smart, you are so smart, look at you, got this A on this test, you are so smart, oh my gosh, you are really smart, wow, are you smart? Like we keep telling kids are smart, guess what they think? I'm already so smart that I don't have to do anything. And that's a fixed mindset. So when you have a fixed mindset, it means nothing in here can change. I'm already everything I'm ever going to be, and nothing's going to change in my neurology, nothing's going to change. So when I compliment my children, I go, that was good, hard work. Because that's what it takes. And I want them to know that's what it takes. And when I come home and have some kind of success story to tell them, I go, that didn't happen by accident. That was hard work. And I'm really glad I did it. Right? And so a growth mindset is recognizing that you're not all done and fixed. And you don't know everything. Right? And no matter how old you are, I wish I could get this into my 92-year-old father, who is, still kicking and going strong, but he, he's 92, so he sleeps most of the time, and when he wakes up, he kind of forgets what he was always doing. But he is the one who taught me this way of thinking, is to just always recognize that what you think about, you can have, and you can have anything you put your mind to. You can grow in any direction, and there's no age that you stop growing. It's a choice you make on the inside. So limiting beliefs are not just failures, or one of the limiting beliefs to turning empowering is I have not failed, I just found 10,000 ways that don't work. Right? And what's exciting about that is, I found a bunch of ways that don't work. Guess what? You know what not to do, right? And so we have to do something different, and then be like okay with, oops, I fell off the board, I'm getting back on again, right? And then every time you fall off, you find a new way. So we want to help you find a new way. So while we're helping you find a new way, I'll point out to you some of the bad sources of calories that we get exposed to that are maybe for some of you tempting, or things that you have to look at and change. But the average calories per day in the United States people consume are the highest in grain-based desserts. So apparently we do a lot of binging in our country on baked goods. And when you stop and think about it, it's probably not even just desserts, but if you take the average standard American diet person, they start out with a bagel, and then we have, or cereal, or we have, at lunchtime we might have a sandwich with some bread on it and a couple cookies for dessert, and so all day long our diet is feeding a bunch of sugars and carbs. So one of the things to first do is recognize that that's not going to work if you keep doing that, and where the bad things are. So here's a math test for you. If Bob has 36 candy bars and he eats 29, what does he now have?
Diabetes.
Diabetes! That's just to make sure everybody's awake. Is everybody awake?
Yeah.
Right, so you don't want to keep eating the candy bars that somehow you've decided make you feel good, right? And we're going to find something else to make you feel good, because that's the only thing you're doing with that candy bar. Because guess what? 5 minutes later, you still don't feel good.
Yeah.
And now you don't have a candy bar to eat, which makes you even sadder.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to cut the sugars and the things that turn into sugar, right? So the first thing that we talk about when we're teaching, changing to what we call in our office the advanced plan, is you get off grain and sugar. And when I say that, people go, what am I going to eat? And there are actually a lot of things that you can eat without grain and sugar. And why do you not want to eat grain and sugar is because grain turns into sugar in your body, and sugar overloads your cells to not be able to process properly, so you become a sugar burner. And the more sugar you put in, the more your body craves sugar, and because you crave sugar, you now can't handle sugar well, so then you become diabetic, right? And then too much sugar in your body leaves this environment in your bloodstream of sugar that now your cells have to learn how to live on sugar, and your cells actually change to survive. They become cancer cells to live on sugar. So that's the process of how your body slowly over time dies. And it doesn't happen overnight, which is why we don't pay attention to it. And then all of a sudden we look back and go, wow, like 20 years ago I used to be something different. So that's number one. Another source of sugar is actually one of the most common in our country is pop. People are drinking a lot of soda pop in this country. The average American drinks 55 gallons of pop a year. Isn't that funny? And I don't drink any, so I don't know what anybody else is doing.
It's like 3 of those drums behind you.
Woo! Yeah, that's crazy.
A lot of pop.
That's a lot of pop. And I do sometimes see people like walking around. If you go like to a fair or something where you see people like out in this weather, and they walk around with a, what are those? 2 liters? 2 liters of pop. And diet pop is worse. So avoid that. I actually was at Whole Foods the other day doing a little bit of shopping, and I heard a guy out from behind I don't know what I was doing, but I'm just always listening to people, and I heard him go, "Where do you have the diet pop?" I almost fell out of my chair. I wasn't even sitting, but I almost fell over. And I was just like keyed right in, and she said, "Oh, well, we don't have any diet pop here, the Whole Foods, but you can, look over there. We have some other carbonated drinks and stuff like that." So of course Zevia was over there. So I left where I was. I walked over by the guy and I go, "Have you ever tried Zevia before? Because it's really good, and it has no calories." And I taught him like right there what to do. Because, oh my gosh, there's so many other options besides this, but everybody thinks that's what you have to do. So, Zevia, if you're liking pop and you need to quit that, they could be the one thing you change when we walk out my door right now. Write that down, Zevia. They have every different flavor you can imagine. So, sugar sources. I'm not going to sit here and read all these off to you because that would be really boring, so read them yourself. While I tell you that you have to read ingredients on packages. Because in the package is all these sugars that are hiding in a package. So, like for example, I don't have this listed on here, but I do have it on our screen. Like a Nutri-Grain bar. A Nutri-Grain bar sounds like it's a natural, healthy thing to eat. And when you look at the ingredient list, there's actually 21 sources of sugar in the ingredient list. right? And so people are thinking this is a healthy thing to eat because it's like fruit and granola or whatever the heck it is, and it's just a pile of sugar. It's really, quite frankly, no different than a candy bar. It's how much sugar is in it. So you want to avoid eating a bunch of sugar and all the sugar substitute. I don't mean substitutes as in
Other names.
yeah, like, you know, of course there's some healthier ways, but other names of sugar. So like high fructose corn syrup. We've gotten in our country so addicted to sugar that they had to change sugar in order to make everybody satisfied with the taste of stuff. That's why where high fructose corn syrup came in. And it's like 20 times more sweet than regular sugar is. So the more and more processed it is. So here's an example of all bran. Sounds like something healthy to eat. And if you have diabetes and you go to a dietitian in the hospital, they'll tell you that you should have your fiber. Don't forget to eat your fiber. And so then people are doing this because it says it's a very high source of fiber in your all bran. Well, guess what else is in there? A bunch of sugar. So the sugar portions of it, first of all, are all at the very beginning, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sources right within, and there's the first 6 ingredients on there of sources of sugar.
Wow.
And yet there's really no sugar poured on it. As a matter of fact, a lot of people eat that stuff and go, bleh, this tastes terrible. I'm going to add sugar on it. Right? Because it probably tastes like, I don't know. But anyway, so don't eat cereal. Anybody have a cereal habit? Anybody eat cereal for breakfast? Cereal for breakfast. So cereal's bad. So I'll tell you the research on cereal. So they took lab rats and they fed one group of lab rats the cereal, and they fed the other group of lab rats the box. And they found out that the group that ate the box was actually healthier than the group that ate the cereal. Because the cereal is full of toxins, and it's just a big blob of sugar, just in different. And then they also have to add artificial vitamins back into it because it's such a reduced form of something. So we always want our food to be as close as the way God made it. And if it's living in a box and would live in a box for 20 years, it is not closest to the way God made it. Right? So it's a processed food. So you want to change that habit. Don't be fooled by the cover. I talk about that because like the front of this Pure Via is sounding like it's stevia and it's pure. But it's not because it's stevia is not good, but because along with the stevia they put dextrose and oh no, it doesn't say anything else. I thought it had a second one in there.
Flavors.
So and dextrose flavors too, but dextrose is sugar, right? So if you put sugar with anything, of course it tastes better. So there are stevia brands. My preferred brand that's currently out on the market that hasn't been damaged yet is called Sweet Leaf. And you can use it in a powder form or in a packet or in drops. You want to get Sweet Leaf Stevia. Stevia has no calories and it is a herb. So it's not a toxic, like the Splenda stuff. You gotta go home. If you have Splenda sitting in your cupboard at home and you're using it right now, go home and throw it in the garbage. It is terrible for you. And it does a lot of damage to your nervous system and your neurology. It causes headaches, joint problems, all kinds of, a list I can't even tell you all so long. But stevia is safe and effective way of missing sugar. There's also things like for using for baking is, what's the one? Swerve, thank you, is got erythritol in it. So erythritol is okay because it's a sugar alcohol and it's a low glycemic sugar. So it's not something you should put in, 1 million teaspoons a day, but if you're having a sweet thing, you can use that for that. Okay, so then rethink fat. Any questions about sugar as I move on?
Yeah, I want to ask you. So processed sugar, the white sugar, just
Bad stuff.
bad stuff.
Yeah. So they refine it, and as they refine it more and more, it becomes more intense sugar. Just like if they took a cocoa bean and more intensely refined that, you'd have cocaine, right? So when you refine cane sugar, it becomes a drug, and it is literally a drug that makes people want more, and then makes them very sick.
That's why I eat so much.
Yeah,
I consume a lot
it
of
makes
sugar.
you very addicted to it. And so it takes a little bit of work to get off of it, but we've done the research and the science, not only in this little room right here, but across the country, that you can't go off sugar a little bit at a time. It's kind of like alcohol. You have to just
Got it.
rip rip off the Band-Aid and just not put it in anymore. And the first 3 days will suck. And then you start to feel better. Like on day 4, it's almost like somebody just like lifted this fog out of your brain and you go, wow. And then about a week and a half later, you don't want sugar anymore. So
And
it's a
so-
little bit of work.
So you say all the grains, as far as the cereal, that's sugar too. Huh?
Yes. So is brown rice.
Oh yeah.
Brown rice, white rice, those are grains. Corn is a grain. Those are all things that turn into sugar.
What about oatmeal?
Oatmeal also
Oatmeal's
bad.
a grain.
It's a cereal and it's a grain. So this is why we're having this conversation, because like sometimes people like go, I don't eat a grain, and then you go look at what they're actually eating and that's a grain. And we don't realize it. So it's not just bread in the form or grain in the form of bread, it's grain any which way you use it. So that doesn't mean for the rest of your life you never eat brown rice again. But it means if you have drugs you gotta come off of, or you gotta get undiabetic. I just made that
Is
word
that a
up.
word?
I just made it up.
I like
You like
it.
it?
I'm
You
getting
gotta
speaking
not be
inside.
diabetic anymore, or you wanna get rid of medications, heart disease, any of those kind of things. You have to cold turkey. No grain, no sugar, and no fruit except for, write these down,
Fresh.
berries,
Green
green apples, and some grapefruit. A little bit of white grapefruit. Yep.
Now, what about the xylitol? You're still, is xylitol still
Xylitol
okay?
is really being kind of dragged over the coals right now by, well, it's bad for your gut, and it's made from corn. They really started like manufacturing corn, like how everybody was like corn syrup's really bad and high fructose corn syrup's very bad. You don't see high fructose corn syrup on too many things much anymore, and now what we're seeing is the front of some bottles are saying with no high fructose corn syrup, right? Like people are aware enough that they're not supposed to be doing that. That xylitol has become the new corn. We make it from corn. You can get xylitol from birch, but you have to pay a little more money for it, and you gotta get it in a special place. And the swerve and the erythritol is better right now.
Xylitol isn't a product for dry mouth.
It is not.
It
a product?
is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and
Well,
all
that's
the
interesting.
dentists will tell you that it's healthy.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, they
safe.
do, they have.
Yeah.
It's
It,
not.
and at one time it was. Like 10 years ago, we used to talk about using xylitol because it's a low glycemic sugar alcohol, but they've beat it up. In the marketing world, they've beaten
So
it up.
stay away from it.
Yes.
So what's the alternative for opioid?
That's a good question.
I love opioid.
That's a good question. So smoothies, we use smoothies in the morning. Eggs, which those are the things that your doctor's been telling you, stop eating eggs, they're bad for
Yeah,
your
right,
cholesterol.
right.
Ah, that's a bunch of bull. You can still eat eggs. We put all kinds of vegetables in our eggs, make omelets and that kind of stuff. And sometimes dinner can be breakfast.
Yeah,
Some good old fashioned leftovers are not all that bad either.
okay.
So yeah, we got a couple different ideas to share with you about that. So now we want to move on to fat. You have to rethink your fat, because fat is not bad. Fat is good. It's just the right kind of fat is good, and the wrong kind of fat is bad. So in 1970, everybody started saying fat is bad and fat is making you fat, so stop eating fat. And the truth of the matter is, fat's not making you fat, sugar is making you fat. And sugar turns into fat. And so, fat actually makes you healthy fat, makes you burn fat. And we'll talk a little bit about unhealthy fat in a bit, because there are some situations where you want to make sure you're not only avoiding unhealthy fat, but that you also may have to do some work to get it out of you, because it sticks around for quite some time. So, eating healthy fats, get rid of the bad fats. We'll talk about a couple of things, but like when you're talking about butter or like whole yogurt or whole milk, you're changing those things to whole fat stuff. Don't drink skim milk. And I don't suggest you drink milk anyway, because there's a lot of great nut milks to use, but if you're using milk in a recipe, or we use butter in a lot of stuff, you want to use an organic grass-fed butter. And we'll talk later on about why you want to do that, but you want fat is better. So we got to change our thought process, right? You're going to get a different brain pathway of learning that the front of the package says 70% less fat. Yay, isn't that great? And no, that's terrible, right? So And not only is that terrible, but so are 87 other additives that are in that pepperoni thing in the first place. So you should never eat processed meat either, and that's not even, the fat in it is not half the problem. The problem is the nitrates and the carcinogens right in there. So that doesn't mean I never eat pepperoni, but if I eat pepperoni, I'm eating one that's organic from a grass-fed beef cow that is no nitrates, right? They make those things, so they're available. So what are some of the big fat lies that we've been told? Folks, that fat is bad and all these other alternatives are good. So I don't know if you can see from way back what this is a picture of, but there's actually a reduced fat margarine, regular margarine, and then butter on a tray, and you see the one on the bottom, that's a bunch of ants that are swarming around. And so you look at that and you go, if the ants won't eat the margarine, why are we eating it? Right? I mean, like, they're totally avoiding it. And actually, there's 2 of them stuck in it up there, but they're dead.
Yeah, they can't go back down.
So, pretty sure you don't want to go eat that, right? So, we have a lot of what we call frankenfood in our country and what we've learned to eat so far, and it is literally killing us. And you can actually make a change and get well. So healthy fats, avocados are awesome. The right kind of nuts, and nuts you always want to start off with raw, and then if you're really elaborate and want to get kind of savvy about using nuts and eating nuts, you should also sprout your nuts, which means they get soaked overnight and then dehydrated the next day. But if you can't go through all that process, it's better to have raw before roasted. But I'll tell you, if I'm in a desperate situation where my choice is a potato chip or a roasted pecan, I'm having that roasted pecan. I'm not eating potato. Does it make sense? Fish, also a good source. Your oil should be living in your cupboard and then dying in your cupboard. So if your oil doesn't turn rancid on you, then either you're using it fast, which is good, or you have the wrong kind of oil, because it should go bad if you're not using it, like the stuff that smells bad. So you want to buy smaller containers of olive oil, and use it up, and buy another one. You can actually make your olive oil bad by leaving it sitting in your cupboard and not using it. And you can notice it because you'll smell it. It smells bad. If you got a giant bottle of olive oil from Costco and it smells bad, go throw it out. It's already damaged. It got oxygenated, so it's now a bad fat. Know what that means? Okay, and then fat and weight loss and fat intake, and what we want to talk about all that is that trans fats are bad, right? So you want to avoid trans fats, fried foods, anything that's made in a restaurant is going to be dipped in some kind of fried food. That's all bad fat. And how about this for gross? It has a half-life of 50 days. So what's that doing in here?
Just sitting there.
Yeah, not digesting very well, right? So the cause of all disease and obesity is toxicity, because guess where we store toxins? Here's some more toxins. In case somebody wants to eat it. I don't even know what this is exactly. I think it's like droppings from an elephant ear that are all the leftover little doughy pieces put in a cup with some whipped cream on top. Talking about that elephant ear you ate? It's disgusting.
I'm gonna say fake beans to us.
Yeah, to some people that stuff tastes really good. So you want to replace your grains with healthy fat. So we use, and I have a sample for you tonight, almond meal. I made biscottis today with almond meal. And flax meal is another one. We have a lot of different sources for meals. I mean, like flours that you can make, and I make it with lots of seeds and nuts, and lots of times I like to make combinations of things. Seeds make things a little fluffier, nuts make it a little heavier, so sometimes I kind of combine those two things, and it's quite an art to learn to change that. So at first, when you're making your first set of chocolate chip cookies, you're gonna be a little wobbly on that rolling board while you're making those things. Who's ever been to one of our recipe nights? Who's ever thrown out a recipe they messed up? A couple of you, right? I have. Like I made like when I first started doing this, I made like these brownies. And, they were terrible. I had to throw them out. Right? So you wouldn't be the first one. You messed up learning how to work with it. But once you learn how to work with it, it's much easier. What else do I want to tell you? Oh, so I wanted to talk a little bit here about cholesterol. because we have this misunderstanding that cholesterol is bad and that you should somehow lower it when it's high. And the truth of the matter is that cholesterol is something your body naturally makes, and cholesterol is present in order to protect you. And when we lower cholesterol, we're actually causing more health problems because we're lowering it artificially. We're not fixing the reason we have high cholesterol, we're just lowering it to make the blood test look good. And that's not helping anything. And what that's creating is a world, our country, because $34 billion worth of cholesterol medicine is sold to our country, and people believing that they're taking it so that they won't have what? Heart disease, heart attack, or
High blood pressure.
stroke, high blood pressure, right? These are all the risks that you're supposedly avoiding. And the research shows us right on their own websites, the Crestor and all of them like it say, has never been proven to reduce the risk of heart disease, heart attack, or stroke.
Wow.
And what is now happening instead is more people are dying from a heart attack having had lowered cholesterol than people who had a heart attack who had high cholesterol. So cholesterol is not the bad guy. Cholesterol is actually there to protect you. We also use cholesterol for many other things in our body, and when we're lowering it, we're missing out on those things. One of them is brain and cognitive function in your brain. What do we have a big risk of what's happening in anybody's read in the next 20 years? What's going up? Alzheimer's and dementia. We got a big problem with it. What have we been doing? We've been not eating enough fat and lowering cholesterol for the last 30 or 40 years. And we got a baby boomers, all with dementia, and maybe the generation above baby boomers. Hopefully it's not us yet. I'm like the last of them.
We're the last baby boomers.
So whatever that is, the generation before that, right? So we're gonna be the ones that are not doing that, because we're gonna be making sure we're getting our fat in and letting our cholesterol. You know, cholesterol is also something you need in order to have hormones function. So if you're worried about your thyroid working properly, or men having enough testosterone, you gotta have cholesterol to do that. And so we're having a bunch of people with these lowered testosterone, and they're on an anti-cholesterol drug, and they're out there taking testosterone to try to fix all that out, right? Get rid of that stuff and just do it naturally. Because God knows how to do it better than a bottle of pills does.
Yeah.
Right? Rethink your protein. Your protein should come from clean animals. If you think about your animals sick and dying because they're eating the same crap we're eating, and then they're sick and dying, then you're eating an animal that's sick and dying. So we're not going to do that anymore. So we want to eat grass-fed beef, because that's what God made cows to eat. Grass, not grain, right? So when they're eating grain-fed, they're doing exactly the wrong thing that I just told you can't do anymore. So if you're not going to eat grain, your cow you're eating shouldn't either. Right? And then also wild-caught fish, not farm-raised. You're doing fish. Eggs need to be organic, right? Because then you're not getting the hormones and the antibiotics. As a matter of fact, the number one source that we're getting in our country today of antibiotics is 80% of them
What's an
is
organic
coming
egg?
out of us eating it out of the animal.
What's
Say that.
organic egg?
Organic eggs are eggs that come from a chicken that was raised on an organic farm, so that they're not getting any pesticides or GMO corn meals and feed that has toxins in it, and they're also not injected with antibiotics to make them produce more eggs.
What should they be eating, those chickens? So we know.
Well, I don't know what chickens eat.
Chicken
Bugs,
eat
Chicken
right?
eats.
They eat bugs.
Cage free.
So cage free is okay too, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not injected with something.
Oh,
So,
is that right?
so organic is the cleanest level, and cage free is like better than not anything. But yes,
Can you always trust the organic label?
not necessarily, but it's better to trust that than trust the GMO label.
I've been hearing a lot of good and bad.
There's a little controversy going on in the background about that, because there's, most of the argument that's popping up about that has to do with the companies that don't have organic food or non-GMO food that are saying, well, you think you're buying a non-GMO food or an organic food, but then the farm is right here where the bees are carrying the stuff across and all this kind of stuff. And I'm here to tell you, there's probably some portion of that that's true, But there's also this part that says that at least we didn't start out with something and then spraying it and making it all worse. And I think it's a lot of confusion that these guys are trying to make everybody feel like, why bother? And there's some situations where there's something called, and you write this down, the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. The clean 15 are the things that you want to make sure that when you eat them, they must be organic because they have the highest amount of toxins in them. And the dirty dozen are the things that it doesn't really matter if they're organic or not organic because they don't get ruined. And you can Google that. EWG.org is the website, and then you type in clean 15 and the dirty dozen, they'll give you a list. So, antibiotics are also in the commercial meat. So this is like, you know, I said earlier, you learn a little bit of something now, and you learn a little bit of something. This is something for my front row people over here that I have started taking on is, you know, sometimes you go to a restaurant, you have a vacation meal, and you don't really like, okay, I'm eating at a restaurant. I'm eating less and less meat at a restaurant because of this kind of stuff, right? Because you work so hard at not eating the bad stuff, and then when you do have a little bit of a vacation thing, you know, have a wild caught fish at a restaurant instead of their great looking beef that everybody else wants to eat, and it looks so good, but it's full of antibiotics, right? So it'll tear you up. So we want to avoid that stuff. So smoothies with greens and proteins in it, the grass-fed whey protein. I didn't make a sample of that tonight. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. But we have a couple different protein shakes here that we use for different varieties of reasons. Some people like to use the whey protein, and our whey protein comes from a grass-fed organic cow, so you're not getting the wrong kind of whey. But some people also like to avoid, or maybe you don't do animal products. We have a plant protein as well as now a bone broth protein, which the bone broth one is the highest amount of protein in it, and then has a lot of, it doesn't have whey in it, but it still is higher in fat. So there's a lot of different options for what you put in it, but what you have to be careful when you make a smoothie is that you avoid anything but a berry when you're putting the fruit in it. So don't put mango and, you know, pineapple and bananas. Those are all the things that are tempting to put in a smoothie. And you then make sure that your protein that you're adding to it is not antibiotic damaged, you know, terrible protein with a bunch of sugar in it. Or artificial things. There's artificial things in protein shakes too.
So are you saying put the bone broth in the smoothie?
Yeah, and as I say that, I know that sounds terrible. My first experience with bone broth, I did it with one that actually was just bone broth, and it was terrible. And this one that we have now, and they've over the years have changed them so that you can actually make a cold smoothie with it, and chocolate and vanilla flavors. So it doesn't taste like chicken. I know it sounds terrible, but it really doesn't. So one of the things we also do is a resolve challenge. Some of you did the resolve. It was not last January, but the year before that we did that. I do have the printout for that. So if somebody's looking for either in your book, if you're a patient here, you have your book with recipes and stuff like that. But if you're looking for like a different outline or something to follow, some people like to have just the 5 rules of the advanced plan. Just eat this and this and this, and then just stay to that. And other people like to have, today I'm having 2 eggs, and at lunchtime I'm having 5 almonds, and then I'm having this, and I'm having that. And if you're the rigid person who wants to do that, and I always recommend if you're new to the whole thing, it's a little better to start out kind of rigid, and then you kind of get a little more relaxed later on. We do have printouts of a 30-day challenge of walking you through that process, but it's a lot of paper and a lot of printing, so we didn't print it out. So if you want that, that's something we'll send you a link to in an email so that you can get a hold of that. So how about protective fat? When we talk about protective fat, is that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about fat and toxins. So when we are taking in toxins, and we have over many decades, a lot of times we get weight loss resistant because your body is protecting you from the toxins that are in the fat, that if you burn the fat off, the toxins have no place to go, and then you end up having some more sickness and disease. So the body naturally always wants to be self-healing and self-regulating. Sometimes you get stuck not being able to burn fat because you have to get rid of toxins. So detox is really important for that. and not only detoxing what you've already taken in, but avoiding more toxins, because more toxins then just make you have to deal with keeping or putting on more fat to avoid those things. So I put a couple of things up here just to kind of show a couple chemical disrupting type of things that when we say chemical disrupting, they change your endocrine in your body. But you recognize the word endocrine means it's changing your hormones and how your hormones are working. And there's hormones that make you either burn fat or store fat, right? So you want to make sure your hormones are balanced. And some of the things I put in these pictures over here, a couple of unsuspecting items, like many fruits in your grocery store are not going to have a label on them that says there's pesticides in me, don't eat me. But when you have to look and notice that if all the apples are all exactly the same size and the same style and the same whatever over and over again, that's probably been a GMO'd piece of fruit, right? And so we make fun of it a little bit with the orange inside the apple, right? What's next with the fruit combinations? And so watch out for GMO'd foods. If it's GMO'd, it's not going to say it is, but the digits on the fruit in the fruit market or any grocery store is a national thing that they have to follow. If it only has 4-digit number on it, then it is GMO'd. If it has a 5-digit number on it and starts with a 9, it's organic. And if it starts with 8, then it's got pesticides and toxins in it.
Wow.
So you want stuff that starts with a 9. So 4 digits is just like a commercial raised is GMO. And then starting with a 9, with the other two are 9 with 5 digits and 9. I'm sorry, starting with an 8 with 5 digits. So if it starts with a 9, it's fine.
Good.
If it starts with an 8, it's not great.
So we should just remember 9.
9.
Remember
Yep.
9.
And 5 digits.
Focus on
Favorite number.
And then how about sunscreen? Anybody know? Everybody knows. Everybody avoid sunscreen. Anybody putting sunscreen on still? I should bother to talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So sunscreen is actually have more toxins in the stuff that blocks the sun than the sun itself. And so you have to have the right kind of sunscreen. That doesn't mean that most often if I go out and I know I'm going to be out for an hour to 3 at the most, I don't put anything on. If I'm going to be out 5 hours, then I'm starting to put stuff on. And usually I can start to just kind of tell. But when I'm putting something on, I'm putting on a clean sunblock that only has zinc in it. Remember good old-fashioned zinc was
White
the
stuff on
white
the
stuff
nose.
that people put on their nose, and
Like
it's
that.
harder to rub in, but today you can find stuff that does actually rub in, so you don't walk around looking silly. But you want to get one that's clean. So that comes from either a health food store or Whole Foods carries that kind of stuff, and you just have to read the ingredients. What I think is interesting is all the copper tone stuff and all these fancy spray garbage, which is it's so gross. If somebody's spraying that stuff next to me, I'm like
I
insulted.
run.
I do too. I'm like,
It's like I don't want
okay,
to
wait,
in my
spray that
mouth.
over there. Don't spray it by me. Is that they have for babies, like Copper Tone and these companies that make all this toxic stuff. The baby stuff is the stuff with the zinc in it, without any of the toxins in it. So the word you want to look for in your product is anything that is a oxybenzone, or oxybenzoid. All those, there's like 8 different chemical words that start with OXY, so oxy, and then ben something or another. Benzene, benzide, benzone are all bad.
What do you do about insect repellent?
Those are the bad
I
ones.
use oil. Which do you have a On Guard oil for insect repellent?
doTERRA's called Terra Shield.
They make those.
What is that? I'm sorry.
It's called Terra Shield. doTERRA makes one. I bought one at Whole Foods that's also just oil, and it's citronella and lemon.
Does
and
it really work?
oil.
Because I bought something at organic.
Let me tell you, it works, but it doesn't work for a very long period of time. So you do have to reapply oil. I also like burning natural citronella oil in the area. That kind of stuff definitely helps. What else do I want to say about this? I just love this little picture. Can you see what she's saying? The mouse is going, wow, do you eat that food with that mask on too? Isn't that funny? Does anybody get it?
Yes.
Okay, you guys are all like sleeping. Okay, I better move faster. Okay, so when you're doing a detox system, if you want something to detox, if you think you are weight loss resistant and you're stuck and you need to do a detox, we usually recommend that you do a 90-day thing. Our detox box is 1 month's supply. And if you've never done a detox before, that's usually where you start. This is not a scary detox that's going to make you have a headache and diarrhea and all this crazy stuff like that. It's really very mild. And then people who do it, I think most of you guys up here have all done it. It's something you repeat quarterly because you always get, you know, a little more toxins in your body, so you want to do that. Exercise versus medicine. So I told you I'm going to talk a little bit about exercise, but not for very long. That we do a 12-minute workout that actually makes you burn fat and build muscle for 36 hours after the 12 minutes. So literally while you sleep, and you don't have to be on the treadmill while you're burning fat. Right? And so there's some science behind that. I'm not going to share a lot about that with you, but also know that exercise, I said earlier, is not just about weight loss or muscle toning, but they did research and found out that people are less depressed when they exercise. They did studies with people who are depressed and they did exercise, and another group of people were depressed and they took antidepressants, and another group of people were depressed and they took antidepressants and did exercise. And the people that actually overcame depression faster were the group of people that did just the exercise. Right? Because what do the drugs cause? Depression. The side effect. Right? So we have a Max T3 video. If you want more information about that, don't forget to ask me. Max Fit is actually a thermogenic, help you burn calories a little bit better. And it has ashwagandha in it. Is also stuff that helps fight cancer and helps with like your happy hormones and memory. But it's something that actually we use. If I have a patient who's trying to get off antidepressants, we use Max Fit for that. There's bundles that are on your pack tonight, so you have it with you on your second page, your order form. So when you order on a class night, so normally we have really great prices in the office. As a matter of fact, last December we got even better at that. But on class night, everybody gets 15% off. If you buy a bundle, stuff's 20% off. Did I do that right? And we have a couple different bundles tonight. So one of the bundles is for like a weight loss. If you want to do a protein shake and you want to do a detox and a Max Fit, there's one bundle for that. And then the other bundle is more like I want to just get healthy and get my vitamins like down to a regimen. So that's bundle number 2. You can get either a man or a woman's multivitamin, a vitamin D3, a B complex, and a magnesium. And was there some conversation about do they have different choices with the whey protein between chocolate and vanilla, and can any of the other bone broth be interchanged with that, or no? Just the whey protein is in the bundle. Just the whey protein's in the bundle. You can still add a bone broth if you want to, but it's at 15% instead of 20%. So make sure that you're also heading in the right direction when you're looking at your paths that you get to choose, right? And always focus on which direction you're going. And I like to also not only focus on what path you're choosing, but making sure that the path that you're on is still the course that you're going after, right? If your ultimate goal is still happening, you have to redirect. And so just a little bit of time I want to spend talking about chiropractic and your neurology. For you guys that are patients in the office, you know that your brain ultimately is in control of how every organ, every tissue, every gland in your body functions and heals, right? And so this is a conversation to make sure that you recognize that you should be doing your exercises and keeping on your care plan and getting adjusted, right? For those of you who've never been checked before, it's really important to know and understand that all these things work really well when your body's functioning and healing properly, and all that happens from an inside-out job called your nervous system. This quote is actually from Hippocrates, and it says, "Look well to the spine for the cause of disease." How many centuries ago that was written, right? So we want to focus on not letting your life be controlled by 5 different things. So we want to focus on, or teaching you guys to recognize that where you are right now, if you want to change or you have a different path you want to go on, you don't let these things control you. Your past, right? So remember we said that the failures you had before are just 10,000 ways you learn not to do, right? So past are just in the past. Other people's opinions, right? Because you're going to leave here and somebody else is going to say, yeah, but, right? What? You went to a chiropractor who told you you didn't need to be on metformin anymore? What the heck, right? Your limiting beliefs that we talked about at the beginning. What are you telling yourself that's stopping you from being able to move forward? Relationships, don't let those control what you're doing and where you're going, right? You should have relationships. That's not doesn't mean don't have them.
Unless it's the
But
good ones.
but have the right ones in your wheelhouse. That doesn't mean you're not friendly and loving towards everybody, but focus on the right people in your wheelhouse, right? Those people should be influencing what you want. And don't let your mind be controlled by money, right? Because then you have that have, do, be instead of the be, do, have, right? So we just want to encourage you guys to think differently. So a couple of directions, and I'll take a few questions. So you have your order form. On your order form, make sure if you're going to order something tonight, my staff will be ready to bag things up for you and process your order. Just make sure you check off on there what you're getting and write your name on the very bottom. If you're using a